So yeah, roommate's here again. Say hi, John.
Hey, John.
Say hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Yeah, so starting off as usual with Lupat, but oh my, they're here because we have stuff to comment on with Zio. Keiichiro goes on vacation, but it's actually an undercover sting to recover another VS vehicle, this time Splash, because everybody's acting so oddly. Noel gets Kairi to tail him throughout the day to figure out what the hell is going on. It tries to bridge Keiichiro as a better character than he's been presented as, but honestly, it's episode 30. You burned your bridges throughout the series, so it's like you kind of are way too late to really validate with how much of an asshole he's been, and how his previous attempts to be nice to people have honestly blown up in people's face that you really don't see the intelligence from this. Like, I just started watching Lupin Part 4. Yes, I know it originally released in 2015, but I am very behind on that, but I've been busy the last few years. But yeah, it more contrasts this because Zenigata, they're clearly pulling from the various Arsene Lupin media, either both the book and especially Lupin III with how the Phantom Thieves act and their whole dynamics. And obviously Keiichiro is supposed to match up with Zenigata on this. We have addressed this several times in previous parts of the vlogs, and honestly, the watching part 4 just more contrasts that, because Zenigata is very smart and intelligent and shows himself to be the cop, always nipping at Lupin III's heels because he is just as much an adept as Lupin is in his own field of expertise. He really is that good, and we don't get that from Keiichiro because, well, he's acted like a smeghead throughout so much of the series. So him kicking the asses of all these criminals that had the Splash VS vehicle, yeah, this is an unusual paradigm shift for him because, well, he's just acted through tenacity for the rest of the series and why he gets anything done. So this level of skill and ability from him has not been seen, and it's not selling him as cool and someone of real merits in comparison to the journey the Lupin Ranger been on, because it's the 30th goddamn episode. It almost feels like character derailment in how it's trying to show that Kairi was even more of an awful person, instead of just having this, like, one moment he really does truly regret that led him on a journey to become a better person. And it tries to derail the idea that he's on a journey to become a better person by saying that he's still the same selfish asshole that he's always been, and really he's not. You've never... It's like the thing from the end of Zyuohger. You have completely failed to show the character arc you wanted to present to justify your events, because that's not what has been shown throughout the series thus far. It really is a consistent problem with Junko Kimura in that her series present something different than the arc that she intended the characters to be on. And it really is frustrating in that, as, again, you would get that with a better contrasting point between the sides, with them moving towards a mutual camaraderie by far earlier in the series than it is now. Again, it's episode 30 of the show, and they're still at odds with extreme animosity towards them because of primarily Keiichiro. Keiichiro has consistently been the one to prevent progress on that. Tsukasa and Sakia can work okay with the Lupin Ranger, but Keiichiro is the one that's prevented that union. It really is, more than anything else, him doing it and them saying that the Lupin Ranger shouldn't work with them. Yeah, they're police officers chasing thieves, but as I keep pointing out as well, they're not acting like actual thieves. They're specialized recovery agents hired by the family whose stolen goods these are. They're not actually being villainous and breaking the law most of the time. Duh.
If I may say, this feels like this should have been like episode 2 in establishing character dynamics.
Like, they tried with that too. It's a repetition of what they failed on before.
Yeah, but this time I feel like I came into the series a bit later than you guys, but if I was watching, if this was like episode 2 or 2 for me,
within the tens,
then this would actually be like could have shown a good character arc for Keiichiro. First 10 episodes, he doesn't trust the thieves, but Tsukasa and Sakuya are starting to warm up to them. Then episode 10 rolls around, and then this happens. This would have been actually good, and actually shows that he actually does competent cop work, and actually is willing to put his own pride aside to actually get for the greater good.
Hell, this would have been in a good lead-in to good-feeling Kaiser as well, at, like, say, have this episode in the late teens to then forge the basis for that, instead of having the gag where Keiichiro and Kairi, when transformed, can't be in the same room without trying to kill each other.
And honestly, for me, like, I don't hate this episode. I don't completely like this episode, but I am with you guys that this is too little too late. If you're on episode 30 of any show you're working on, and only now you're starting to build up, do like a camaraderie thing between the two main leads, you done goofed. You have supremely goofed. I should not have to sit through a show for 30 dang episodes to have something happen. I mean, heck, Hunter x Hunter, one of my other favorite animes, it has a very slow start. I'm not going to lie about that. But what saves it is that there's constant character stuff and you're still getting immersed in the world. And also, it's a long-running shonen series. You have 1 year to tell a complete story with Sentai, and you have yet to do that.
And it's supposed to be 42 episodes. We're basically like at
48. What do you say, 42?
I checked online, I thought it was going to be 42.
No, they probably have episode previews through 42, like trailer information.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, the point is, like, we're basically what did you say, 3/4?
We're ending the second third of the show.
Yeah, we're entering the second third of the show. The second freaking third.
End of, not entering.
End of, yeah. We're end of that. And it's just... This is basically the... Mr. Burns asking Smithers, what did you do with the interesting premise of Lupin Rangers versus Patrangers? I told you, I pissed it away!
Also, this episode had a fart joke in it, and if you're doing a fart joke in episode 30 of a Sentai series, you have clearly shown yourself to be immature in your writing. And what do you think kids are? A bunch of gross meme lords that just like fart jokes or something?
To reiterate what I said during Dino Charge, I should not have a counter for fart jokes!
Also, there's a lot of people don't like much gross out humor. This is why Garbage Pail Kids is dead.
Yeah, and it's like, you had a good idea here, too. Like, the idea from its emissions is that, especially since it's the deployment of the Splash VS vehicle, which is a fire truck, is it emits natural gas. Now, here's the thing about natural gas. It doesn't actually have a smell. A stench is actually artificially added to natural gas mixes so people can smell it, so people are aware when there's a leak and they know to call someone about that before it potentially kills them.
Hell,
it is not actually noxious on its own. It's a scentless odor.
Hell, if you made it do the scentless natural gas thing, you could have had something really terrifying, like, because natural gas does kill people because nobody can detect it in time.
And
so
Sorry.
Yeah, imagine having a monster that was doing that throughout the spring resort area, and bodies were dropping because of it, and it was a race against time to figure out how the hell this is going down or whatever.
Until it actually kills people, because natural gas is
right,
the automatic
but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
like, there was a way you could have made this work, but you didn't.
And then there's the other thing. Natural gas is flammable. Hell, the stench thing could have been justified had there been actual emphasis on the monster, because the monster is an entire afterthought in the episode of it being like a sulfur-based natural gas, which would have justified it. And then that is also flammable, because after it grows a giant, then just starts blowing up things out of the blue, and you don't get the connection from that at all on how it's starting to do that when its only previous ability before is smelling real bad, which is negated by the Lupin collection piece in its chest.
Yeah, like, wait, what kind of collection piece is that? I smell good.
It's
like,
a deodorant. It's a deodorant, basically. Why would they like?
Why does Arsene Lupin have a deodorant?
Why did he create it? He was supposedly the one that created this shit. Arsène Lupin, the Phantom Thief, created deodorant.
Hey, even when you're on a case, man, you gotta smell your best.
Yeah, I didn't even see what Super Sentai
I think
trinket was supposed to be. It was on scene on.
It was basically an
series.
afterthought.
I think it was a Goggle 5. It was definitely like a wrist changer or something like that. But it was.
It looks like a fountain drink.
But no, I'm saying like I'm saying like they made like a rose thing, and then they just slapped a bracelet around it or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway you slice it, it's friggin' stupid. Although,
and of course, it's the once they get Splash, it's combined with the Lupin Rangers mechs. And honestly, I feel like Kairi at the end of the episode should have thrown it back to Keiichiro. The idea that he didn't actually earn it, Keiichiro just tossed it at him in order for him to save people. So
he didn't toss it like Kairi. He was fighting with Kairi, who was holding on to it.
No, I'm saying that he should have tossed it back because he didn't actually earn it, like an honor among thieves kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
And then that would lead to the Patranger being able to use it as their next tier mech combination, which, spoilers now, they're not getting. In fact, from the preview information we've been getting from the Television magazine scans, it doesn't look like they get another mech evolution at all.
It's all about the Lupin Rangers.
And it's like, the Lupin Rangers aren't bad characters per se, but the pendulum is like weighed too heavily in their favor. And
so you don't like the Patranger, and then you don't like the Lupin Ranger because the Patranger have been so demonized throughout the show, so you've, in this popularity contest versus machine, congratulations, you've failed to make both sides appealing.
Right, it's like, but
this is why we hate versus movies where the two Sentai teams fight each other.
Like,
no one looks good from doing that.
I mean, like, honestly, if you really wanted to do a Cops versus Robbers Sentai, you should have had the thieves be morally gray and, actually breaking into people's houses, so, like, the police have a legitimate reason to want to stop these people because that is an actual crime. And you could have just reduced the Pat Rangers to one Zenigata type Ranger, like doing badass police stuff. Yeah. Wouldn't you think that would be a lot better at least? So
yeah, and on the various factions fighting each other thing, that's also why the Superhero Tyson movies sucked.
If you think they are good, you're wrong. Go watch them again with a critical mindset, and you will quickly see all this.
None of this
better comparison. Watch the series that are part of those movies, and then identify every single time they bastardize that source material.
Take a shot for every time when it happens. You will get alcohol poisoning within an hour.
Take 2 shots for every time a show writer says it.
Anyway.
And that leads us into the main dish of why these two are on here. Kamen Rider ZO. I fucking called it!
He freaking called it!
I have been saying this for 2 goddamn months when Kento Shimiyama was announced as the writer and Shinichiro Shirokuro was announced as the head producer. They fucked it up!
First fucking episode!
They done fucked it up!
I mean, I've seen every... Okay, I need to finish watching Kiva to see absolutely everything, but I have seen every debut episode of Kamen Rider. This is the worst one.
Bar none.
Bar none. Sougo Tokiwa is a high schooler in his senior year of, high school, and he's ditching his entrance exams, ditching schoolwork, all with the proclamation of, I'm gonna be the king! Why does he want to be the king? It's not explained in the episode. Or rather, I should say, it is explained as a throwaway line about wanting to make everything better for everyone with his stewardship of the world. This is said at the end of the episode after he already learns that he's going to become Oma-Zio, the Demon King, who literally fucks over everyone, makes their lives terrible.
The Demon King of Time, will kill people! Soga is told this explicitly, and he doesn't give a shit! What the... Is this supposed to be our hero? Like a sociopath man that hears that people are gonna die and says, lol, nope, I'm gonna be a hero king man. Or
all he needs is to be beating up prostitutes, and he's Joffrey from Game of Thrones.
As an addition on that, Shinichiro Shirakura has been giving out a bunch of interviews about this show, and one of the things he said in the interviews is he doesn't know what heroism is or how to depict it in any of his media. This is why we know heavily that when he's a producer for something, he is very heavy-handed in making the writers want what he wants. He derails what the writers intend to do, or the writers' attempts to fix and mediate things by saying no, by basically going, no, rewrite this, this isn't what I want depicted. Combine that with the previous point. He doesn't know how heroes should be depicted, he doesn't know what a hero is. Like a fucking dumbass. And this is exactly why my camera fucking died when it was at 60% power. I need a new battery. Where were we?
You were talking about how Shirakura has his head up his ass.
Yeah, this is why the Showa writers were written so offensively in all the superhero Tyson films, because Shirakura does not understand the heroism that was present in those series. Hell, he said that he got the idea from Kamen Rider is that at the end of the day, the Kamen Riders become the villains that their villainous faction was because they were remnants of its villainy. Missing the point that just because you had awful things done to you doesn't mean you can't be a good person and fight against those orders and evils. And this is why I keep saying that Kamen Rider is one man's rebellion against a powerful order trying to make the world go wrong. Because that is actually the contrast with all of Ishinomori's heroes. The villains and monsters of the series are those who have abandoned their humanity, whereas the heroes might have had something monstrous done to them, revealed they were monsters in Faiza's case, aka why Kamen Rider Faiz is actually really good about this point, but as long as they retain the morals of their humanity, then they're not actually evil, monsters, or bad people. Shirakura, in everything that he's ever produced for Toei, and I've consistently looked at this, especially if it involves media that originates from Ishinomori, completely misses this. And this is a series that is clearly going to miss it because of how Sougo is ignoring the compassion elements of his humanity for his most inner demons. And ironically, we've already seen this with the entire advent of Oma-Zi-O. Because the way this show is acting is it's acting under a one long causality loop. All the people who are traveling back in time are going to cause the events that set up Oma-Zi-O's
rise to
power. But then you realize in hindsight that Oma-Zi-O can't rise to power in any way, shape, or form in the past if these people don't travel back in time. This is the consistent problem with the causality loop. You cannot start the events of a loop without an instigating point. An instigating point that exists without the causality loop. The causality loop then just informs other events that the protagonist would have been unaware of, which all set things conveniently in place. If there's interaction, then time should be able to change, but the way they keep setting it up is that you're not changing time, you're making it so it happens.
And, that's not even getting into the mind screw logic of the time travel in this episode.
Can I say this?
Sure.
The biggest flaw. So, remember what happened at the end of Build? How Build's alternate Earth fused with the main alternate Earth to create a timeline that never happened, that never existed, that the Smash Monsters never existed, Pandora's Box was never opened. Basically, everyone was different versions of themselves.
Except for Banjo and Sento, who were the only survivors of that, who only came in to integrate into that world in summer of 2018. So basically, they don't exist in that timeline before that point. Their world's timeline no longer happened anymore. There was no way to access that story because due to the world fusion, it doesn't even exist retroactively. It dead ends. The best you could say is the events of Heisei Generation's final happened, and then Build's Earth goes bye-bye because it's no longer interconnected.
So one of the places they go in time, demonstrate they can go through time, they're knocked out of the time
streamy thingy,
and they end up in Build's timeline, which makes me wonder, what?
Yeah, the only way the various story points of ZO work is if they're working on one long causality loop. Basically, Back to the Future logic, if Back to the Future caused, instead of potentially wiping Marty McFly away, and then Marty McFly has to fix everything so it conforms to what he knows of time, they're now operating off of Dragon Ball rules and multiverse theory, where every time they travel back in time, they create an alternate timeline. So, no matter what the main protagonists do to change Sougo's history to prevent him rising to become Omazeo will never stop existing, meaning the entire story of the show now becomes pointless because of this.
And, like, do you want me to take the reins for a second?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing that pisses me off. We have Tsukiyomi, the girl who comes back in time to try to stop this, basically telling Sougo, don't do this. You are going to be doing bad things to people. And you have Kamen Rider Gaze, who is pulling a Terminator and wants to kill Sougo before he does anything.
Gaze's actions here are stupid too, because he first confronts Sougo with his giant robot time machine, and Sougo dives under a structure which is too small for him to get into, and I'm like, dude, why didn't you attack him on foot before you brought in the giant robots?
Right, better yet, just shoot him! Shoot him in the head with a sniper! You want to prevent time? Shoot him in the head! From a long distance!
Like, okay, but here's the part that really pisses me off. I know I said this earlier. When you have a hero who is explicitly said, if you do this thing, you are going to be the cause of many people dying, because the opening of the show had Omazeo atomizing people into dust.
Basically a bad redo of Decade's opening sequence, but
yeah,
Decade. The reason I hate the special edition version of Decade's ending that loops back on that is that it was a dream prophecy of the Destroyer. It's like, it's the worst case scenario that the actual developments of the show refuted. So, to tie back into that in the special edition, made it actually insulting and offensive to the journey Tsukasa's been on to be a better person than that. And the original version was always in the context of, we have no choice, we have to stop Decade to save the remnants of our worlds.
Right.
You lose that in the special edition entirely.
But, you see, the thing that really takes me off is that I love Kamen Rider, I love Sentai, and I love when heroes go up to villains and say, no. But when you write a hero that does not give one shit that people are going to die because of his actions, you have written a sociopath, you have written a terrible character, you expect kids to look up to this character. Like, I know I'm going off on that, but kids aren't that stupid. They are actually way more intelligent than people give them credit for if you are willing to show them a little modicum of respect. Shows that we've all collectively watched in our youth rarely ever talk down to us and are remembered as classics to this day.
Like Arthur! One of the greatest characters.
Arthur's still going on.
But point is, the fact that Kamen Rider, a show where men and women who have been subjected to horrible tragedies rise up to become better than the tragedies that were inflicted upon them to make sure they never happen again, now has a hero that does not care if people die. And that is fucking stupid. If you think that Sougo is not a bad character, go check yourself again, because you are actually saying that people, like, if as long as you become a king, you get to do whatever the fuck you want, and that's not a king. I know the whole idea of a king is dead these days, but when kings were actually doing good things, they were actually helping people. They were, they were more than just,
they weren't selfish individuals.
Yeah, right,
To quote the King Arthur chivalry, might for right, not might. Might for right, not might makes right.
Right, exactly. And it's like...
And Zio is certainly a character that works off of might makes right. It's, again, back to the Shirakura does not know how to depict heroes thing.
Like, he is the biggest villain in Kamen Rider. If you do not believe that he is the biggest villain, okay,
There's a reason that exact thing has long since been a meme. It's it predates Hibiki.
Right, like, the Japanese audience is aware of this.
The Japanese audience is the source of this meme.
In fact, like, if you really are clueless about the production of Kamen Rider and Toku in general, okay, fine, but do a little bit of research and you will find that Shirakura is nothing but a plague that causes these heroes to turn into absolute monsters and just, who the fuck summoned this guy from the pits of hell? Super Satan or something?
And we got the biggest evidence of him being this kind of villain from the whole Hibiki mess. The entire staff, not the entire staff, but it was included in the staff. The main cast were the most vocal, including, I'm forgetting the guy's name, but the man who played Shigeki Hosokawa was very vehement against what Shirakura did in bastardizing his character, and the rest of the cast backed him up on that pretty severely, to the point that even the writers Shirakura brought in, Toshiki Inoue and Shoji Yonomura, were basically washed their hands of their work on that show because they got bad. I say this in the Hibiki reviews, which as I've said before, have been delayed. They got shafted. They recognized they got shafted, and they have apologized for their role in post-staff change Hibiki.
Yeah,
and every person on that show who has talked about what went wrong points the blame solely at Shirakura's actions. Solely him. So it's not like we're not making this shit up.
We are not. Like, it seems like we're spouting out crazy things, but there is a pattern of behavior and just
long-running precedent.
Yeah, exactly, that's it. And Kento Shimiyama writing it, he's just going to be a yes man for Shirakura. And do any people actually like the ninja? If you say yes, you're lying to yourself.
It's a minority audience. The only Sentai series that has worse ratings than it is Q Ranger. I'm not kidding on that.
And if you like Q Ranger, I will then ask you, do you actually like Lucky as a character? And if you say yes, I'm going to check your pulse to make sure you're not an actual undead being or something. Just...
Yeah, we have some strong feelings about this, and...
The salt is real.
The salt is real. It's like, I have a bucket of salt from an ending gag in the Hibiki reviews. I really hope I can get those out next year. But that's not even the dumbest thing. I know, we keep saying that, but it really feels like it gets dumber, it gets worse the longer it goes on. Mm-hmm. So, last we checked it, we were in Build's Earth in 2017, which, again, it doesn't exactly exist anymore. And Build and Cross Z, Ryugen Sento, they hit there in November of 2017, near the end of the year. It's snowing. It can't snow in Japan in the skywall environment because the skywall disrupts weather activity. It was a plot point in the show of why Hokuto, the northern sector, which was supposed to be a farmland district, didn't get the weather conditions it needed to actually grow any food, and actually went into famine conditions. The skywall disrupted the weather activity, so it didn't happen. So right near the skywall, snowfall, it's not happening. Again, you are ignoring the lore in the previous goddamn show that just fucking ended.
Jack, also, this was supposed to be around this time they were fugitives. The Kamen Riders in Build were fugitives around this time of November. So the fact that they revealed themselves
simply to Sougo,
with not knowing who he is or why,
or have any impetus to actually bring him back to Cafe Nasada when he could just out them, is so freaking stupid.
It's out of character for both of them. Sento is a genius!
Right, Sento may have had his character problems towards the end of Build, but he was not that stupid. I could believe Banjo pulling that off, but even then that would be like decrediting Banjo because at least he had a little bit of, common sense to that.
Yeah, he had common sense at least.
And again, this is consistently what we see of Shirakura and Shimoyama's previous content. They deride senior heroes. This is also tying back to Ninja's tribute episodes with the Super Sentai, and also Go Busters versus Go Keiichiro, who acted very derisively of the Go Keiichiro, and acted as if they had no actual character arc in their series, and writ them as if they hadn't even had their first episode of development. So yeah, we have this. This is very consistent with Shimoyama, and this is not just Shirakura on this.
And
hell, we can also tie in Kyoryuger Brave, which had the exact same staff as this show. But yeah, all of that together, they're dismissing these things and they're being derisive towards senior characters for the glorification and continuing purpose of developing the story of the new guy. That's not how that's supposed to go. Senior characters are supposed to be like mentors, pass on some piece of wisdom and knowledge, and with Sougo coming to be invasive to their series and story, you have to operate by the previous series rules when you interact with them. That's why we were so hesitant on a time travel story going back to the previous eras, where this writer was not involved in those stories at all. He would do wrongly by them if he had not researched or looked into them, and Build's Earth is the worst possible example you could do, because the show just ended. It is the most fresh in people's minds of how wrong this would be felt out as. Like, if they went to Kuga's time first and pulled this, okay, Kuga was almost 20 years ago. It's like, you would still do wrongly by it, but you would have more of the justification in that no one has likely seen this series that recently unless they were a fan or got the DVD sets from a few years ago and whatnot. It would not be fresh in people's minds like this.
And you know what the worst part is, Davis? There's gonna be a Fives arc. Oh man, that's gonna be a dumpster fire of shit.
Yeah, Kenzo Honda, who played Tsukumi Inui, and Kohei Murakami, who played Masato Kusaka, have already confirmed that they will be returning for a Fives arc episode, which the only way that could potentially work is if the people who are manipulating time to give rider powers to other people, we haven't even gotten to that part in the story yet, if they make it so that Masato gets Fives' powers, because then that would feel like a story extension to that, in that, how would this all play out if Masato was the actual hero instead of its villain, especially with how everybody kept swapping gears in that, so that Takumi completely stays out of it like he wanted to originally. That is a potential what if from this scenario that you could so totally do if you actually bothered to research and look into these stories. I am dead certain that is not what they're going to do, and they're going to have Masato be buddy-buddy with Takumi, even though they hate each other's guts. And we know this because of Kamen Rider fucking Tyson, where in that story, Shirakura had Shoji Onomura write Masato as if he was the actual hero of Fives. We have precedent where Shirakura has disrespected this series that he didn't work on. Hell, that's another thing on this, in that Shirakura has also stated that series he didn't work on are juvenile and not worthy of the title Kamen Rider, instead of the reverse. Yes, he is that big of a bastard on this.
So, needless to say, I think we're all going to be skipping Zio this season.
Yeah, but we haven't even gotten to the worst part of it. So, Tsukiyomi, the girl who traveled in time to prevent Sougo from becoming Oma Zio, and also from him being assassinated by Gaze to entirely end the plot, recovers him. But one of her former companions, at least we know this from knowledge about the series lore, has come into 2017, same timeline as Build's story, and given somebody a device in the series called a Ride Watch. It causes some type of time meddling thing where someone else, specifically a basketball player who has had no character and anything, he was just suddenly there to obtain the powers of Build in a monster form known as another rider. This, according to series lore, which is probably going to be gotten into next episode, causes the actual normal riders to have amnesia and lose all the powers they should have. It basically subverts time to take over the powers of the previous rider. Now, these watches end up transforming into the Ride Watch transformation trinkets of ZO, meaning from what's presented about this, for them to have these means the related rider should lose their power. From everything presented about this, if it's going to change into the related Ride Watch. So basically we have a keiichiro scenario in a realm or reality where you can't really have a keiichiro scenario, as Kamen Rider powers aren't exactly consistent to a standard modus operandi like Super Sentai eventually developed with their powers. They're pretty distinct. Some are magic, some are biological evolutionary, a lot of them are technology, and sometimes they mash all three together, but there is no common ground besides the title of Kamen Rider, which is bestowed to those selfless heroes that go out and help people. You cannot you cannot become a true Kamen Rider and have that title without earning it and having a conduct consistent with them. And it's again why I say Shirakura series so fuck this up, because a lot of the times they don't. Hell, tail end of Agito was borderline for its crew earning that, and tail end Agito, yeah, that's when Shirakura left that show to hand it off to someone else so he could work on Ryuki. But that is neither here nor there. The big problem is that this happens in 2017, at a time and place in Build's world. So Sougo goes back to 2018 after Tsukiyomi knocks him out and gets him out of there from interfering with the timeline. And then we have another Build attacking people.
In 2018.
In 2018.
So are you telling me that these another writers can time travel?
It has been 11 months of difference since then.
Or are you saying that another Build has been active for 11 months and killing people? Like, I'm not sure about.
And no one's done anything about it?
Like, don't you think, and this is not a world where, writers suddenly don't exist. You don't think, a writer would go, hey, why are people keep disappearing? We should investigate that shit. You know
and again, Sento and Ryuga have only been in this fused version of Earth that presumably Sougo is part of as well for at most a month. So, for the following Amnesia plot, which is happening next time, because we already have spoilers for next time, it literally doesn't work.
This whole thing doesn't work. This whole show doesn't work. You know what could have worked? If it was about Zio going back in time, fixing paradoxes with Kamen Riders.
Yeah,
or it could have just been about Kamen Rider Gaze, trying to prevent the new, the future world order and learning about stuff along the way so he can get armed with knowledge to stop the guy in the first place.
Actually, another thing about this, immediately after the episode aired, Gaze went mimetic in that this guy should be the hero. This guy is the hero over Sougo, even though he has at most had 3 total minutes of screen time. Yes, 3 minutes. 3. So,
think about that for a moment.
And we haven't even gotten to him transforming, and this is actually the point where you think would redeem the character and make the show about Sougo's personal evil desires being counted by a genuine want to help people. And no, it's I'm going to become the best demon king possible and save people because I was born to be king. So it's he's not even saving people for a selfish reason. He's saving people because he wants to be king, and that'll make him kingly. And again, missing the point where you can't set your end goal to being a king in this manner. You are still selfishly motivated to help people instead of helping people being a selfless, sacrificial act like it normally is. Okay, I commented on this before online as well with all the other stuff, in that One Piece. Luffy's goal is to become the king of the pirates, but the king of pirates is a title with the context to it being he has achieved the greatest freedom that a person potentially could, because he's a peacemaker type of pirate who seeks true freedom in the world outside of tyranny. The will to be, the ability to be and do what you wish, not because you're a bad person, but because you've now gained the ability to
explore the world,
freely explore the world without
without worry that like somebody's gonna come in and like ruin your day. And becoming king of the pirates doesn't mean like you suddenly lord over all the pirates. That just means you are the baddest motherfucker in all of the seas, and you can now just go. It's like free roam mode. You can go where you want, do what you want. You can like eat what you want. And
you're the man, basically.
Like So and that's something established about that from the first chapters and episodes of One Piece, where he doesn't want to become an actual king. He doesn't want to rule the pirates. That's just something that happens with the current progress of the story, in that Luffy is in command of the Straw Hat Fleet, which is a loose alliance of various fleets of ships, where it's not he's in command of them, it's a neutral pact for helping each other. It's still the same kind of camaraderie thing, which this show is supposed to be fucking doing, and they're not going to do properly because they're just going to subjugate the senior writers to whatever glamorous thing Sougo is going to be doing and showing off, because, and I know this because I have read ahead in the script. Not literally, but preview information.
Yeah, it's like, if just why?
And of course precedent, because that's what they fucking did in all of the Ninjas team-ups and Go Busters versus Go Keiichiro.
It just sucks to say that we're skipping a Rider series, because we all love the writers in general.
We do, but it's just that anytime Shirokuro gets involved in it, they
know it's going to be toxic. It's going to be a toxic dumpster fire of shit.
At best.
So yeah, I think we've
We haven't touched on Zio's transformation.
Oh, yeah.
We were right there. So he had bullshit motivations. Now, I will admit this, in that if you watch the TV Nihon version, I know people have issues with TV Nihon. It's just that he's not as awful a character. Overtime really screwed up with Sogo's dialogue this time. Specifically, the line where he's admitting to Tsukiyomi that he wants to be a king. This could be a really good power for him to have to become that king, and then he admits that, but it would be bad if I was an evil person in doing so. In the overtime rendition of things, they changed the admission that it would be bad if he did this to him shrugging off and going, "Oh, bummer that I become evil, though," as if he's entirely shrugging off Tsukiyomi's words. Admittedly, he does that, but he does that later, after the actual villain of the series, or villains of the series, show up. So it's entirely possible, had they not started doing this, that Tsukiyomi could have gotten the ride watch that transforms into his personal transformation item away from him, convinced him to shut up and stop all this. But instead, her allies have created this monster to basically go after and stop him, that actually causes the situations that begin him on his journey to becoming the villain they all know in the future. And touched on worse by this is this other, priestly asshole that contains a book of all written knowledge that he's shown up,
out of nowhere.
He shows up out of nowhere. We have no context on what the hell he's doing there. But he basically gives Sougo the other piece of what he needs to become the Kamen Rider. His belt literally comes out of nowhere. No, rephrase. It's future technology. So Sougo would have never become Omazeo, period,
if it wasn't for them.
If it wasn't for them.
And
now,
here's the one thing I just realized.
Actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, this might actually be how the causality loop starts. They say Sougo is a genius, so maybe he spends, the next 50 years, because in the future, where all these people are coming from, it's 2068. So maybe he spends years and years developing this technology to basically allow him to rule over time. That makes him into the evil Omazeo. But the flaw in that is that the statue in the future that this battle is coming in front of, it's in commemoration to his first transformation, meaning it's all reinforcement of that first causality loop. But all this time travel technology is coming from the future. So, who developed it?
Now something I just realized. One way this could have worked is if one of my other favorite time travel mechanics is you can't assassinate Hitler, and that is the idea that even if you went back in time to, shoot the bastard,
even if you shot him point blank in the face,
right, some other sick motherfucker comes up to power instead. So what you could have done is keep things obscured, don't even say that this is Sougo, it could have just been anybody, and then the entire show could have been is Sougo really this Demon King? Is it somebody else? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and, set it up that Sogo's the one that developed this technology. The development of this technology made Sougo evil. Everybody starts traveling back in time to stop him in various ways, so he sends his own herald to give him this technology so he can actually start his conquest 50 years in the past, forgetting that he was a different person back then.
Right, because he's so far gone that, and shows that, with different circumstances and different people in your life, you can become a better person. And
so then you get the story of his herald gives his past self these powers, and then his past self has to go the long way to collect all of them, and that journey ends up making him a better person and subverting the timeline where he becomes Omazeo. That works for this kind of story engine, because then you get the causality loops, you get the people changing and affecting time, but the problem with that is they treat these as absolutes, as in Sougo getting this power at this time, in this moment, is what eventually leads to him becoming Omazeo, especially with that commemoration plaque of his first transformation.
Who does that anyway? That's really egocentric, am I right?
Yeah. And that is where they ostensibly fucked this up, in that you make it an absolute. You establish now at this point that you can't change time. Even Ryuki, it went through half its show before fucking that up. Den-O, Den-O actually showed that the timeline was slightly flexible, and if someone changed something, then it mended itself to reflect that, but it was not quite set in stone yet.
It was sort of like wet cement. You can make quick changes to it, but you have to hurry to make sure it doesn't set.
Yeah, that's how Legends of Tomorrow has been treating time travel, and that's how some moments in Doctor Who have been acted, in that once you change something, you can't go back to change it again without entirely screwing over the fabric of space-time.
Oh, and speaking of Doctor Who, I swear
they stole the 11th Hour theme for
Which it wouldn't be the first time Toei has used sound effects from Doctor Who. They also had the TARDIS grind sound effect in Mega Ranger, for example.
Right. But the reason why this kind of makes me a little bit more angry is that the actual name of the theme is I Am the Doctor, and it is a really good musical piece, full of... It builds up to hope and stuff, and, grand adventure, whatnot, and...
So not only are they ripping off the premises of Den-O and Decade, they're ripping off the musical library of another company entirely.
Right, who is responsible for one of the greatest time travel adventures of all time.
Now, Doctor Who has its own continuity issues, but the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey explanation for how time works in that show, in that nothing but certain points in it are set, make it flexible enough so that you can't adhere... You don't need to adhere continuity-wise to every single event. Admittedly, that makes some stuff in Moffat's tenure kind of irritating to critique because he went against that a lot. But Toei's use of time travel has consistently been, especially when they're going back to previous eras in series, in that the previous series are sacrosanct. Don't screw with how things were depicted there. You have to adhere to how they were depicted in those stories if you want to use them effectively and respectfully. This is where Toei always consistently fucks up with their crossovers, in where they don't do that. Not even involving, time travel. The Super Sentai Versus films, again, we're addressing that, in that the worst ones are always where they're fighting each other because they disrespect who the characters were in their stories in doing that and picking a side in who is evil and who is righteous scenario for that.
Yeah. This all sucks.
Yeah.
Also, I'm gonna say the editing in this was shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad somebody was.
The editing was like it jumps around all the goddamn time from one thing to another. Like he's suddenly inside the time machine, he's suddenly outside the time machine. They're suddenly in the Cretaceous period, which
and
isn't
there's
even
barely any transition shots to like establish how he's getting from point A to point B.
And the worst thing is the director for this episode, I checked it before we started recording this, is Ryuta Tasaki. Ryuta Tasaki's record with Toei is decades long. He is a good director, but whenever he is involved with Shirakura, his work turns to shit. You look no farther than Kamen Rider Amazons for that, where a lot of the directing was ruined by a color filter over the series to make it look darker, and from what I've read on Amazons, that was Tasaki's decision to do that. And another scene that I had heavy critique over is when Amazon Omega used his bike and at 20 miles an hour rammed into one of the monsters in that series so hard it splattered into guts. And my response to that was, if the monsters are so weak that they can be entirely obliterated by a minor car collision, which I have been in 20-mile-an-hour car collisions on my bike, I ran out of it without a bruise. So, if your monsters are so weak that they pop like balloons, how are they even a threat to anyone in that show? And again, you get the same kind of disparate directing here as well, in that, like, in a show about time travel, there is no action continuity.
Actually, I'm glad you brought up that Amazon's point, Davis, because so when the actual fight between another rider and CEO happens, Sougo has been established to not have any combat experience, doesn't know how to throw a proper punch, doesn't know how to kick, and yet, somehow, some way, he's able to beat back the other rider by punching him like one or two times, summoning his sword from the driver.
Oh, and we know he's an incompetent fighter because a judo champion that was earlier in the episode chewed Sougo out for his king thing, and that he doesn't actually try and do anything. Like, his only specialty is history, and he doesn't actually know any history at all from how it's presented here. But he judo throws him over it, and like Sougo
without even a thought. Like it's like you picked up a twig and you threw it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it establishes him as having no combat experience at all, no sports ability at all, and yet the basketball player who got Build's abilities, who's supposed to be a super genius now because of that ability transfer, gets one-shotted by ZO.
It should have been like a curb stomp,
and his main weapon is basketballs! He throws flaming basketballs at him! That is stupid!
Like, you gave a character Bill's powers, and the only thing you came up with was flaming basketballs. That's like saying, I'm gonna give you the powers of Superman, John, but you can only shoot cheese out of your hands.
Then Superman doesn't even have power to shoot cheese. Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. Yeah, it's a short fight. Sougo appears to get the disadvantage, but then the driver summons his sword, and he realizes, oh hey, this is a sword, I can just slash through things, inserts the Ride Watch into it, and just one-shots the guy.
How does he know he could do that?
How does he know he could do that?
It's not even like a morphing grid kind of thing where you can
instinctually know how to use the powers. Yeah.
Right.
And I know what they're trying to do with this. I know what they're trying to do, the Decade thing where he instinctually went for all the powers. But again, part of Decade's power set was instinctual knowledge inserted into his brain about how to use them. That was actually a plot point in Decade about that. Or better yet, I bet they're trying to do the Soji Tendo, I've never used the powers of Kabuto, curb stomp, but when you actually go and look back at Kabuto, Tendo Soji actually was trained, or at least trained himself as a mixed martial artist to gain his abilities, and the first 2 episodes was him learning the abilities and limitations of the Kabuto gear. So he relied on his own skills to last him through at first, and then learned the limitations of his actual superhuman power-ups as a rider. This is the exact opposite, where he just stumbles into the win, And this is again why you didn't put Kento Shimoyama on this, because he did the exact same fucking thing in Ninja. And, of course, also Kyoryuger Brave. I keep forgetting that one because it's so awful, and I want it out of my head.
Yeah, and you need the Gaia memory for that.
And, of course, then Gaze comes in, finally transforms as he should have at the beginning of the episode, and transforms into his ghost ride armor, which kind of mimics his movements before it docks onto him, and that's where the episode ends, with Gaze attacking Zio, and, I'm on his side!
Yeah, we're on we're on the Terminator side, because we have no reason to like Sougo, so kill the little bastard.
Sougo has no character. He has no interests. He has no likes, no dislikes. He has nothing about him that makes him a character. There is nothing about him that makes me want to root for this guy. I have more reason to root for Keiichiro!
Actually, there's another reason that this series fails. In Sougo becoming the Demon King, if he was actually a decent person, learned these facts, and was given this equipment, a decent person would then hand it over to Tsukiyomi, completely subvert the story entirely, and once he gives it up, he's out of the story. Once he's out of the story, he doesn't become Omazio. You have changed time instantly by doing this.
Boom,
and yet, Sougo doesn't even have good reason for, subverting another build. And the other thing about this, it's been 11 months with this monster being active and running around, and no one has done anything about it. You have established that the other Kamen Riders exist in this setting. They didn't try to take this guy down like it has been established that in series like 4s or any of the team-ups that they're still active fighting monsters and villainous forces and they completely look this guy by. Again, you cannot tell a story with Shimoyama or Shirakura without disrespecting every other goddamn character that is not their protagonist. Chosen protagonist.
So, in short, it sucks. Don't watch it.
Don't watch it. Save yourself 30 minutes out of your day, watch something far superior to this.
We're going to be going back to watch Shinkenger, as no matter how much I criticize Yasuko Kobayashi for her story failings, I like Shinkenger. I'm likely going to find more flaws in it because it always seems like
that happens.
Kobayashi's series never seem to be better on a rewatch, but hey, this might be one of the exceptions because everybody loves almost everybody loves Shinkenger.
Psychic Lover does the opening.
Psychic Lover does a lot of Sentai openings.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Psychic Lover.
So yeah, we're going to be going back to watch that instead this year.
We're going to watch some good things to,
we're going to have fun.
We're going to bleach our minds of this.
And like I said, since we're not watching Kamen Rider this year because, let's face it, this series is going to suck. It really is with how bad this opening is. Because it undermines it really does, in one episode, undermine every single point you could possibly make for a positive rendition of this kind of storyline. It undermines every single thing they wanted to do and are going to do with it, with this one episode. It really is the worst beginning episode of a Kamen Rider series. Okay, I think Amazon's first episode might be a rival for that, but it's Amazon's.
Right. Mm-hmm. As far as main
Rider series, it is the worst.
Yeah. Mm. But at least we have the good shit to go back to. Am I right, guys?
They can't erase that.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, when you come across something so absolutely horrible beyond redemption, you need to go back and watch the good things in your life.
The only thing, most of the people I've interacted with online, it's not all dissenters have been removed from it. This is Toku, Twitter, social media, and Tumblr social media. A lot of disparate opinions on good series and bad series, and pretty much everyone is in agreement that they either hate the show already, or they at least agree that Sougo is a dumbass, and he's not going to undermine the show even if they keep watching. So it's rare we get this level of universal agreement.
It's like that meme where everybody's shaking hands in a circle, and in the middle of it is hating Kamen Rider's CEO.
Another thing that was a big meme this week is pictures of Tsukasa Kadoya and saying, now it's Zio's fault. Because,
Yeah, it's
the
like,
big joke...
What is you?
Yeah, because the big joke with Decade is he wasn't actually the fault of the crap that went down in his
and
show.
one more point on Decade and why it's still a better series. You at least have Masahiro Inoue being an absolutely joy to watch as he, like, just he smokes the camera and stuff, but there's something about that guy when he acts that
He has this innate charisma in playing assholes, as the way he plays assholes is they're not bad people, he just has a big ego to him.
Right.
Like, he's a good actor, and he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not bothering with Zio, where we really don't want anything to do with this show. We're not going to be buying any of the merchandise, I don't think.
No, I don't want anything to do. I don't want to support Shirokura in any sense of the way.
Hell, I still have Goshots to collect from Xaid and O's stuff, because I got the CSM metal stuff. I still need to find some Selmos and the Gub and the meta...
The purple axe thing.
The purple axe thing.
And I
might as well call it the purple axe thing, because...
Yeah. And I want my own double driver.
Yeah, that's the other thing about this. That is probably going to be a better seller than the Zio gear, and Bandai at this point knows it. They're re-releasing a bunch of the old best drivers and Super Vest varieties. Hell, they're re-releasing the original... how am I forgetting the guy's name? They're releasing Kuroto Dan's Buggle Driver, which... during Xaid became expensive because everybody wanted to get one. They're re-releasing it. They're re-releasing the Lost Driver. They're re-releasing the Deca Driver. They're re-releasing the Double Driver again.
And also the Bugler Driver, far superior to the GQ Driver because it has a chainsaw on it, fires lasers, and has the power of God on its side. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, so basically that's both a good thing and a bad thing on Bandai's side, because all of the ones they've announced that they're going to be re-releasing, they're bestseller items. So there's already an excessive amount of them on the market already. So if they're using that to supplement Geo's sales, then you're kind of screwing yourself unless you're going for that audience that never got one. But the problem with those that never got one is that you have a wealth of secondhand stores in Japan with them sitting on shelves.
Honestly, if they ever re-release like the Blades Driver, I'd be so happy because.
Oh yeah, like ones I wasn't able to get to before that I really liked. Like, it is impossible to get a Lost Driver in America because for how well it sold, it was actually a limited run item. So I'm for $60, that's what they're selling them for. I'm probably going to pick up a Lost Driver.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So any other things we need to say?
Don't watch Zio. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It really is not worth it for an entire year of frustration, especially if you're someone like me that has watched almost everything and is a huge continuity hound, because respecting continuity is how you respect those stories.
And also, you've seen a lot of time travel stuff, so like...
Time travel is like up there with one of my most favorite story devices.
Yeah, so like,
if you make a series that I hate, and your series is about time travel, then you fucked up. Admittedly, Japan screws up the depiction of time travel stories in excess to any other country's use of them, and Toei especially when they do time travel episodes, but it's like, I don't want to watch just another series that so gets this wrong. Learn from... I'm actually forgetting... Steins Gate. Learn from Steins Gate. Steins Gate is like arguably the best time travel anime in existence. Learn from that series.
Well, let's go bleach our brains with some...
we're gonna go watch the new Venture Brothers episode this week, so we'll see you all later.
Bye-bye.
I will be back for vlogs when the Garo Jenga series next starts up, because I'm dropping Lupat at this point too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will see you all later.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
It feels good to get off.